I need to let them know how I'm going to help their dreams eventually become a reality. And then the substance needs to actually be able to be seen.
Worship in waiting. She was like, I don't even believe in God. I kind of don't really know what that means exactly. We just stay so surface level that I'm going to keep going back to the word substance, that there's no substance behind it.
Welcome to the Full Vantage Podcast. This is going to be an episode you are going to really enjoy. We have the Olivia Omega with us. She is many times behind the scenes, as well as many times on platform. You speak publicly regularly around the state, if not country. You are releasing a book with your daughter soon. We're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about all things branding and creative, because that's the skill set that you kind of carry, maybe even some new projects you're working on. And then you help the one and only DJ Fedora stay somewhat organized, and moving in a direction. And then it's cool because you guys help each other navigate, hey, let's pursue a future as we work in a kind of a cool partnership, which I've seen, which is really, really powerful for you guys. And then at the end of the day, mom, friend, youth pastor, you've done everything.
Gosh, I've done a lot.
I could keep going. You want me to?
No.
I think every time I'm around you, we've been around each other a few times, and it's been amazing conversation, but you're always able to be really present in the moment, but also focused on work. You do a really good job of coming in and out of conversation, but also building a moment and, I need to be here doing this. And you're kind of, what I can see is it seems like you are amazing at, the puppet that has the strings, and it's like you're the puppet master. Is kind of like making the puppet, perform or do the fun thing and entertain. It's like I could see you being both the person that's doing the entertaining and producing and performing in some ways, and then also you're like pulling strings on a bunch of different stuff.
It's like a fluidity, right?
Sure.
Being fluid.
Sure.
And stepping into the moment, whatever that moment calls for.
And you read rooms really well.
Oh, thank you. I try.
To be able to do that, it takes one being able to read rooms well, I think. Because you have to see the moment and see what it takes and what the moment needs. So with all that being said, you're going to love this episode. I'm excited for this. Been looking forward to this conversation because you do carry so much. Do you care to elaborate on who you are and kind of all of the things that what makes you, Miss Olivia?
I think the dynamic elements of all of the things I've done make me me, and it's taken a while to get to a place where I'm comfortable with not putting myself in a box. So for a long time, it's like I am branding, I am advertising and marketing, and that's what I went to school for. I graduated from CU Boulder, marketing degree. So that's who I am. And then add mom on top of that. But in my journey and in my life, I've gone in and out of entrepreneurship because of whatever life calls for. I've done corporate, I've done nonprofit. I recently got back out of entrepreneurship and went into nonprofit, but there's so many things. And so coming to the realization that we are human beings, God has created us in a very dynamic way, and I don't need to be an entrepreneur or a nonprofit marketer or an author, or I can be all of those things.
How did you get to a point where you thought that all of that was okay?
That was recent.
Okay.
That was very recent. So in 2020, my dad passed away right before the COVID shutdown, and my daughter was the following year going off to college. And so it was a moment for me just in evaluating life. I think we all did that, around that time, to say, what does Olivia want? And what would make me happy? Because a lot of my decisions, even just out of college, were about my family, then my kids, my, relationships, whatever. And so finally being like, what do I want to do? And so it was, I don't want to do the grind of the entrepreneur anymore, at least not right now. I want to build a team. I want to be behind a really great mission. I don't want to be working 80 hours a week. I feel like I'm in my later years. So I set on this notion of finding something that fit me. And so I landed at the Denver Scholarship Foundation as the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications. But in taking that job, I felt like I had to set aside entrepreneurship and almost let down and disappoint the people that I had been mentoring and leading in entrepreneurship. So it took a lot of conversations with my mentors, my mentees, but also just in prayer with God to be like, okay, I don't have to put that down, that I can move into this new phase and pivot, as that became like the key word of 2020, pivoting into a space that's a dynamic layer of experience and background and richness and stories and life that I have lived that makes me who I am.
So one of the things that I see you do, and that we've talked about, is that you're a storyteller. You love story.
Absolutely.
You love the aspects of storytelling, because I think you would say that that's a key piece to any brand, is the story that you tell. I had a guy the other day. Oh, I want you to answer this question. He said, what did he say? He said, I don't want to build a brand. And I said, you don't have a choice.
Right.
Because you saying you don't want to build a brand is building a brand that is against typical brands.
A non-brand.
Yes, you're a non-brand brand.
Yeah.
Which is a brand.
Non-brand
Just
brand.
just so we're clear.
Absolutely.
And he was like, oh, I guess you're right. And I was like, yeah, because, okay, what is brand?
We can go back to the basics.
Okay,
back to the
please,
basics. Nuts
please.
and
There's
bolts
so
of
many
brand.
questions, but I think that's a good spot.
A brand is the combination, the culmination of values, an experience, nostalgia. It's in school you would say, or in branding you would say, a value proposition. What can I offer you, or what can a brand offer you that other brands cannot offer you? So it's a promise. A brand is a promise. And then you've got all the things. When people think of brand, they think of colors and logo and visuals and things like that can bring the brand to life. But what I find is that a lot of people will focus so much on that piece of it. How does it look? That they haven't built the foundation of the brand, of the promise, of the values, to really set it apart. And so then they throw stuff out there into the world and it's not different, which is hard. And what's interesting about the non-brand brand thing is, I don't know if you're familiar with Liquid Death.
Oh, yes. Very familiar with Liquid Death.
So as someone who just I feel like I was born into
Have
brand.
you heard of Renewal Rain?
No, I haven't.
There you go.
Okay.
There's the opposite. There's the positive side
The opposite.
of Liquid Death.
Okay, what's interesting is
Go
when
ahead.
I first heard, I think I must have been in Target or somewhere, and I ran across Liquid Death, and I was like, what? And I read the can, and everything in me was like, this is horrible. Like, I hate this, but I hated it because it wasn't speaking to me, and I am not the target, which is totally fine. And then I was like, but I love it because it is not speaking to me, and I'm not the target. The worst thing we can do is create brands and marketing that speaks to everyone. Everyone can drink my water. Water is for everybody. And then you create this bland, what is this whatever non-brand brand that doesn't have any power behind it. And so I was actually at a conference a couple years ago, and the co-creator and chief marketing officer of Liquid Death presented there and was talking about the impetus behind the brand. And it was basically, he was sick of marketing, been in agencies and did the advertising thing, and just tired of marketing and the selling people products they don't need, and just like all the things that come along with being in advertising. And so he literally was like, I'm going to create a brand that is so over the top, that is so just ridiculous, to make fun of brands and to make fun of marketing, and to get people to drink more water, to be a little bit more sustainable because it's an aluminum can. And honestly, at the end of the day, encourage those who are wanting to be cool and hold a can in their hands that looks like beer or whatever it might be, to drink less alcohol, drink more water, be more sustainable. And so then I was like, well, shoot, I love this brand. Darn it, I love this brand. So yeah, the non-brand brand, you are building a brand. And then I talk about personal branding a lot. And I'll go in a room and I'll say, raise your hand if you have a personal brand. And, you know, one person is like, oh, maybe. And I'm like, everyone in here, if you have a reputation, if you have a name,
Ooh,
you
yes.
have a face,
Reputation.
you
Come
have
on.
a brand. You have a personal brand.
Yes.
Whether you're building it or not.
If someone knows your name and has something to say about you,
Good, bad, and different.
doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
That is the brand. That they're saying something. They think about you. It's also been like this. I think a lot of times people don't remember what you say,
Yeah.
but they remember always how you made them.
feel. That's
Come on.
Maya Angelou.
Wait, what?
Maya Angelou quote.
Okay, I didn't know the source.
Yeah. Yeah. People won't remember what you said, what you looked like, you know, different things, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Do you know where that came from? I mean, you know the source. I'm saying, do you know where in the context of
I
how
mean,
that was said?
because I see everything in the light of, like, I can't walk the world without seeing things in the light of branding and marketing.
Yeah, right.
That I always attribute, every time I hear that quote, I always attribute it back to personal branding and relationships.
Which I think is one of the most valuable things that we have as humans is those relationships. Mm-hmm. And we should probably focus on how we make people feel when they walk away from us. I've also heard it say in oversimplified version of what you're already saying. It's substance, then style, then symbol. And it's easier to do style. I mean, it's easier to do symbol, and it's a little bit harder to do style, and it's very hard to do substance.
Yep. That's exactly what I was talking about when you have people who just like, I just want a logo. Like, let's get a logo. Let's buy a domain. Is that you? No.
No, it's not me at all.
Let's get a domain. Let's get a logo and let's throw it out there. So that's the symbol. Then the style is like, all right, what colors are we going to use? And let's do a photo shoot because everyone wants to do a photo shoot.
Yes.
So now you have some style, but then it's like, yes, what is the substance? And with substance, you differentiate yourself. And I always say, like, you can charge more. And charging is not a bad thing. Charging could even be, when we talk about currency and exchange, could be attention. So for me to give you my attention is a currency exchange. When we think about social media, we're in a society where we, like, 2 seconds, like, scroll. If something doesn't catch us in 2 seconds, we scroll to the next thing and we scroll and we scroll. So the fact that I would sit and actually watch a video for 6 seconds, which is now the big, like, if you can get 6 seconds, you've got somebody. But to get 6 seconds, it's the hardest thing in the world. If I watch a video to the end and then I watch it again, now you've got me. So even though I haven't necessarily exchanged money or pay, when I'm saying you could charge more, that currency of just even attention, or even me giving you my email address to sign up for your newsletter or to be a part of your thing, your initiative, that's currency. And so you can charge more when you have real, genuine, good substance.
Oh my gosh. I heard this the other day, and I think this speaks to exactly what you're saying. Running water. If you didn't have it at your house, we would struggle. We would hate that. And when we got it, take my money. You know? Yeah. When we got it, take my money. Where do I sign up? How do I sign up? And it's because of the gratefulness of having running water. And I've really thought a lot about how if somebody is grateful, then they will be generous with the things that they have and the cost it costs them.
Yeah, it costs them something.
And they're great with it because they're grateful for the thing that you've now given them, which is a true gift. Mm-hmm. And so I love that idea.
But if you can't articulate why it's a gift, or articulate why you should be grateful, thankful, if you can't articulate the value of this thing, person offering, then the person can't be grateful because they don't know what they should be grateful for. So that articulation is huge.
How do you help people articulate better? What do you do?
I kind of have them thinking differently about what they're offering. So even as I'll just say as a consultant who is, talking to people about wellness and changing their mindset and their perspective in life, you have to think about not the competition, because we always are like, well, there's nobody out there doing what I'm doing. And there's no other you. There is no other Trevor. There is no other me. So the way you present something, no one else can do. So yes, when we think about it that way, I always say when you're authentically yourself, your brand has no competition. It's kind of like the thing that I repeat over and over again. But if I allow you to think in a way that isn't about competition, but about alternatives, then you think differently. So you're a coach and you are talking to people about changing their mindset and living a better life. What's the alternative to hiring you as a coach? Well, one alternative is to do nothing and to stay in your own negative thinking, in your own mindset. The alternative is to watch YouTube videos. The alternative is to pick up an audiobook and to listen to an audiobook. But are you going to actually, execute on what you're learning there? Probably not. And so as you go through the alternatives, you're able to then talk even more about what makes you different and the value that you offer to a person, because you're going into the person's mind of like all the other things that they could be doing or that they are doing instead.
So when you work with a company and you're trying to help them find their uniqueness, what are some of the main questions that you get them to think through?
I always go to values. I mean, that's kind of the foundation and the crux of who you are, who a company is. And sadly, there have been times where I've worked with a company and we start with values and find out either there aren't any, which is like, wow, really? Or those values are super surface level and for show. And this came up a lot in the 2020 Black Lives Matter time frame of companies. And I actually did a lot of work with the outdoor industry right around that time. And so the big, I won't even say any brands, but like think about the biggest outdoor brands that you could possibly think of are putting statements out there of we care about this group of people, or we, care about these certain things, and they're saying it and there's nothing to really back it up. So when we start with value, we find that again, either the values aren't there, or the values are very, very much face value for lack of better terms, and that there's no meaning behind it. So it's like, okay, if we're going to build a brand, we need to go back to the foundation and say, how do we actually bring meaning to these values so you have something to talk about, so you have substance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So have you noticed a lot of brands, because I've found this to be true, or it seems to be true, where they just say things just to say them, right? So what does that do to a brand over the long period of time? What have you seen that do negatively to a brand? And then what can we learn from that?
Brands do it all the time.
Right.
All the time, just saying things to say things, or like, what's the new buzzword?
Yeah, or people do that.
Oh, yeah.
We just say things just to say things, or we'll tweet things just to tweet them. Or,
Yeah.
I guess, is it tweeting if it's on X, or
We're
X them
Xing?
just to X them? I don't know. I don't know.
People are Xing things left and right.
So
Posting, yeah, definitely. And then you kind of go through, it's this term, it's so funny. My kids are older. But they are up and hip with the slang and the terms or whatever.
Sure.
So standing on business, like this is like the term that I hear a giggle and a laugh. That you're saying something, you really mean it, you walk it like you're standing on business. And so a lot of brands don't do that. And then the downfall to that is that people could see through it. And I think even if you look at the current generation is fascinating because they really, truly do value values. Young people value, and Do you believe me?
I do.
Young people
No, I do.
value values.
I really do.
And even to the point where this younger generation, they don't want to work for a company unless the values align. And so they're really big on that. They're really big on investigating, Googling, looking like behind a celebrity, and a celebrity puts out a new product, a beauty brand or whatever. Well, what do they stand for? And so they will investigate, they'll look, they'll do the research, so they want to know what that is. And so when brands are starting to just slap labels and terms and just start to say things, they're getting found out. It doesn't last very long.
So I've had quite a few businessmen and women that are older. They own companies. They're struggling to find, and they complain a lot about this generation or the next generation, whatever, younger generations than them. And how can that person? What can that person learn, or those businesses learn from what you're saying right now? What can they implement that allows them to actually connect? Because I don't think the current generation is lazy.
You're right. They're not lazy.
No. But that's said all the time. But that's said all the time.
It's said all the time, but this is the thing. They're very opportunistic. They're extremely resourceful. So you can bring up AI into the conversation, ChatGPT
Sure.
and all the things. They know that there are tools out there to make life easier and to make life better. And they fully take advantage of those things, and they're not ashamed of it. Like this is their technological right to be able to tap into those types of things. They also dream really big. This generation dreams really, really big. So instead of, and my daughter's graduating from college in a few months. So instead of being like, let me graduate and what can I get with this degree? I'm going to go work here. It's like, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author and launch a book and become a millionaire and then make up my book into a movie. So it's like, and then you have people like me that like, well, what's the plan B? Or like how do we start right here? But they dream big. And so sometimes it comes across as being
A little naive sometimes.
Naive.
Or not realistic, or I don't want you to get let down.
Or like, how do you have the audacity? Like,
yeah,
the audacity to think
audacity. That's
that
a good.
you can
that's
step
good.
into this world and not like pay your dues and start at the bottom and run and go get coffee and get paid no money. Like, and they're like, because this is what I want and therefore I'm going to go after it. So it's not lazy. It's just different. And I would say, going back to your original question of what does the older generation do when they are struggling and feeling like there's no connection, they have to find out what's that connection. So a lot of times we think about demographics and we think about, okay, if I'm, if I'm in my mid 40s, early 50s, and I'm trying to relate to a younger demographic, we think age and we just kind of harp on that difference. But if we take away demographics and we look at psychographics, so the psychographic is what do we have in common, even though we are, for lack of better words, worlds apart in age. And so the people struggling, it's like you really have to sit down and maybe talk to some of these lazy young people and see what drives them. And you might find that actually what drives them is some of that more traditional desire to live a fulfilled life, same drives that you have. And how do you connect on that level?
Okay, I have a question for you, and I have a scenario to bring your way. This is something I'm thinking about. I love your opinion on this. Okay, so what I have always found is, or what I'm finding, is that the current generation does a good job at, like what you just said, at having dreams and aspirations. And that's not something that the previous generation was really good at keeping. We put those dreams away because those are childish. Those are, who am I to have those dreams? That type of thing. So the older generation didn't maybe necessarily keep those dreams alive. They let those die to get the 9 to 5 and to go through the process to get all the things. Okay, but something that we can learn from them and actually flip the script on is if you let who you are and how you dream go away, then you're being less yourself, more and more and more. And then when someone says, Olivia, who are you? And you're an older generation. Or Trevor, who are you? And you're, an older generation. You're this business, you run this company and those types of things. You barely can give an answer. The win is you can get to know a young person, one conversation, one
they're
moment.
Authentically themselves.
Yes. And they're not settling for less than that.
And they're not jaded. And they're not like, their hearts haven't been torn apart too much. And
yes.
So my daughter and I talk about this a lot because when she was younger, her name's Malia. She was so authentically, like, we would just say she's Malia. So authentically herself.
Oh, that's her. That's Malia.
That's so Malia. That's so, like, she would walk out the house, like, with jeans and a tutu and then, like, a feather in her hair. I'm like, why are you have a feather in your, like, what is happening right here?
I love that.
And she's just like, what, Mom? This is amazing. And what's sad is that then as she got into closer and closer to middle school, that girl who would, in the grocery store, drop everything to dance to whatever song was playing, and who would, she rocked like these purple polka dot glasses, like she just, and killed it because there was so much confidence there in who she was. And in middle school, that was just completely shattered because of mean girls and expectations and, all of these things. Then you go into high school, you carry that. Conform or shush, stop, like be quiet, go sit over there, be in the corner, like don't be loud, don't be rambunctious, don't do a cartwheel in the middle of the hallway, like all of those different things. And so you carry that into high school, then you carry that into college, and now you're an adult that has shunned and put away this incredible human that was so uniquely themselves. And it's like, how do you get that back? And so I'm talking to my daughter, and even in the book that we're about to publish is, for me, it's taken, the older I get, the more I care less about what people think. And I'm so still not there. I still care a lot, but I care less. And so the older I get, and so it's like, how do I go back to, and it's not about like picking up a coloring book and like, let's color like we did when we were kids, but it's like, let's dream like we did when we were kids. Let's think about things that have, the world would say is hard or too difficult or won't happen, and say like, this is actually possible. What are the possibilities? How could we become unlimitless? Because as a kid, we had all these kind of really great ideas.
I think the older generation can learn a lot from this. And I think that there's a connection that can happen because the older generations know so much, and they have so much to bring to the table in development, in thinking through, in responsibility, in growth, in consistency, in discipline, in doing all of the things that they have done to sacrifice maybe something that was really difficult for them to sacrifice. We can learn a lot from that. And those are really valuable things.
Yeah, how do we bring the knowledge,
Yeah.
right? The years and years, the
Yeah.
decades of knowledge without the negative thinking.
There's so much value to be brought to the table, and their perspective is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm sitting down, if I'm the older generation, I'm sitting down with the younger generation. One of the things I want to hear is realize I can get to know them immediately right now. And if I want this person's, the younger generation's skill set to be a part of what I am doing, I need to let them know how I'm going to help their dreams eventually become a reality, and then the substance needs to actually be able to be seen. Mm-hmm. Oh, you want to become this. You want to be a professional painter, and you want to have a professional painting business. I'm a business owner. I can teach you the side that maybe you're less skilled at, and I would love your creativity a part of what I'm doing.
I can teach you what you're less skilled at, and I have the network. So
Yes.
The relationships that you've built over 20 years, the contacts, the network.
Yeah.
our younger generation is hopefully just now building that or starting to build that, but may not have those connections. So we can open our Rolodex, for lack of better terms.
That was a good older generation word.
Yeah.
What's a
Let
Rolex?
me open up my.
Did you say Rolex?
I'm gonna open up my pocketbook and get
Was
my.
there a D
Rolex.
in that word?
Oh my gosh, Rolodex.
Just
Wait,
kidding.
your Rolex? No, you're my Rolex.
Wait a second, you're gonna buy me a Rolex? See, now we're distracted.
Right, now
And
we're distracted.
Yeah, that's my fault.
But yes, so bringing experience, and I even think about this notion of dummy tax. Like, I've paid the dues of not knowing that I should register my business, or not knowing that I needed a, license or a, X, Y, and Z. So we can pass that down, and then we've got the network to bring as well.
It's amazing, and the conversations can go so much better, and there can be so much less confusion. They're gonna tell you, the younger generation, who they are immediately. Well, why don't you reveal to them how you're going to invest in who they are, and be really clear about what they can do for you and how you can help develop them, and setting the expectations up.
Yeah, and making sure that they keep the vision. They
Yes,
keep the
keep
creative
the vision.
control.
Keep it.
Because I think a lot of times, because the older, what do we say? The more seasoned generation.
I love that. More
The
seasoned.
seasoned generation. Because we have so much experience, we can see what you have this idea? Well, let me make the idea better. And then we kind of can try to take control over that unknowingly. But how do we let them keep the vision, keep the creative control, maintain the captain of the ship position, while we just provide and pour into that additional knowledge?
I think it's important to realize there's a word that I think is really good for the future. And I think the word is collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Collaboration, not competition.
Yes. Collaboration, not competition. Not how do I keep them here, but how do I collaborate with them to help them get there? And by doing that, they may want to stay here and be there at the same time. And if they leave here, I'm only better because they will have allowed me to get further down the road to where I can keep going. And if I develop them really well, guess what? I'm going to have so many more that they're going to bring to the table because they're so loud about what they care about. They'll bring more opportunity to me, as well as I set up. If I open up more opportunity for them, they'll bring more opportunity. It's this collaboration and actually caring for each other as humans that gets us all where we really want to be.
And then that creates these generational narratives that are so incredible and complex, where you're collaborating, and now you've got this story to tell that spans generations and then goes into even the next generation after that.
So talk about storytelling, because that's your gifting, and we've been doing it the whole time in this conversation. So when you sit down with somebody who's maybe struggling to tell the story, or struggling to even understand their story, what are some elements to storytelling that we all need to identify for ourselves, whether we're leading a business or in one?
I think one big thing is, how do you make the story unique? And a lot of times in storytelling, we'll stay on the surface of that story. Whether we're talking about a product we're launching, storytelling around a brand, around us as an individual, or life experiences. And so I always say, if someone else can copy and paste your story, you have not dug deep enough, and you haven't put enough detail and uniqueness into that story for it to really become something that's powerful. And so
So just make a bunch of stuff up?
No. No, it's just, it's pulling out, it's, digging a little bit deeper. So for example, I could say, and so many people can relate to this story, that my dad took his life actually in 2020. And so, crazy enough, I've run across a good handful of people whose father took their life. So for me to say that as a story, I'm telling my story and that's the piece of it, there's actually quite a few people who could copy and paste that story. So that means I need to go deeper. I need to give context to the relationship that my father and I had, the relationship that we didn't have, the context around his passing, why it was so tragic to the family, the emotions behind it, For me, there was anger. For a lot of people, there's anger in that situation. Okay, so someone can copy and paste that. Let me go deeper into what that anger really meant and why, and how that anger shift and turned into regret and sadness. So when I'm adding these details, it's almost like when you're reading a book. If you've ever read a book and you're like, I can picture myself in that room, because now they've added the smells. Like, what does this room smell like? How does the light shine into this space? What is this person thinking about? You're adding layers to the story. You're building the context so that it is more powerful and it's more unique. And that's what people are missing in telling the story of a brand, is that we just stay so surface level that I'm going to keep going back to the word substance, that there's no substance behind it.
No, please keep going back to the word. That means I said something that was valuable for both of us. Okay, and I think that's the point. Don't make it up. And the point being is, you are unique enough right where you are. Everything you're feeling, everything you've gone through, everything you're dreaming about, there is no one else exactly like you. You're not alone. I think that's really important.
Yes.
You're not alone.
And there is no one exactly like you. And a lot of people think they have to have this really deep, sad sob story.
Right.
I came from the projects. It's so funny when people are like, talk about the hood, and I'm like, if you've been anywhere but Denver, Colorado, like, this isn't really the hood. But you don't have to come from this deep, dark place. You don't have to come from poverty. You don't have to have a huge sob story to be able to be really intriguing and engage people in the story of your life and the story of who you are.
I think it's really healthy for us to go internal like that too, to be able to flesh that out. I'm reminded over and over again that it's the weakest person, the person that's willing to be the most vulnerable, that is usually the most powerful in every room. Because if that person begins to truly be their authentic selves and be vulnerable and honest and clear, not in a weird way and not in oversharing. I'm not saying that. I think there's appropriateness in every room. Read the room, but that person, whoever's willing to go there, most powerful person in the room.
Absolutely. And we throw around the terms authenticity so much. Like, I literally want so bad to come up with another word for it, but they're like, I was saying, this was probably like a year ago in an interview, and I was like, it's for real, like when you're being for real. And my kids text me FR. I'm like, okay, for real. And we throw around vulnerability a lot. And so vulnerability doesn't have to mean you walk into a room butt naked. And like you said, oversharing or like revealing. It really is, what are you comfortable with? But it is like, you got to start somewhere, and you need to show a little shoulder. Like, you need to do a little bit of something to get yourself out of a comfort zone. But it doesn't have to be bare all. And I think a lot of people think that if I'm vulnerable, that means I have to share everything with the world and then start to post anything and everything on social media, where really it's just let people inside. If you're a canvas, and to the world you are showing a blank slate, there's nothing on that canvas, they will put things on that canvas for you. And so they're going to make up and connect the dots on their own of like who you are, who you're not. This person is, shallow, or this person is uppity and like thinks they're just really quiet. And because they haven't put anything on their own canvas, people are making the things up. So I'm like, put something out there on your blank canvas so that people can know who you are, and otherwise they will make up who you are.
I think as we keep going this direction in this story, do you know Story Brand?
Yeah.
I figured you did.
Yeah.
You keep referencing Donald Miller. Is that right? I think so. Something like that. Story Brand is great. Mm-hmm. I think one of the most amazing things about that brand is, whether it's Donald, I think it's Donald Miller, Story Brand, you can look it up, but probably just storybrand.com. I bet that's legit. So there's different elements to a story that are really important. and you need those elements. And you can't be both the hero and the guide. But if you're a brand that pursues being a guide, you can always have someone to help and make a hero of. But a lot of times what I see is brands or people try to be the hero and try to help the guides of other people, and then they don't have anyone to help because no one wants a hero's help. They want a guide because they want to be the hero of their own story. Yeah. And so it's a little bit backward in some ways, and maybe I didn't explain that exactly right. Maybe you can elaborate on this. But how have you found you being a guide open up the doors that you've been able to walk through in your life?
A guide for myself or a guide for others?
A guide for others.
Yeah.
Because I feel like your own journey has come a lot from how you serve others, how you guide others, how you help others. But you have your own unique hero's journey as well.
Yeah, there's this notion that in storytelling of the most powerful stories come from when someone is allowed to tell their own story. So the example is, I have this microphone, and if I'm constantly like, all right, Trevor, like tell us your life story, and I'm like this, I'm still holding the mic. I have the power. I have the platform. I'm allowing you to tell your story, but I can interject and take it away, at any point in time. So if I were to give you your own mic or hand over the mic, now you can tell your story versus you tell it to me, now I tell it. So in being a guide is really just asking the right questions and pulling the right things out so that someone can really see how dynamic and magnificent and amazing they are and how different they are so that they can tell their story. It's really hard. And I just did this exercise a couple weeks ago where I had people go around a room and say what they brought to the table, what they brought to the organization. So it's like, I bring organization, I bring structure, I bring a fun atmosphere or humor. And then I was like, what do you bring that no one else brings? Someone else brings humor too, right? Someone else brings organization. And people could not think of that word. And so then we had other people say, so I can say to you, oh, but Trevor, you bring this specific thing. You bring like reality to this space that no one else does. Like you just keep us grounded and bring us. And that person could never think of that because you can't step outside of your body and really truly see yourself for who you are. So it's, as a guide, it's helpful to be able to almost hold up a mirror and say, this is who you are, and here are the things that you may not see, but here are the things that make you and your story really special so that you can tell your story in a unique way.
So you would say if someone's struggling with their own uniqueness, grab a friend or someone that knows you, and that's actually probably a healthy thing to do anyways, even if you can, differentiate and determine your own uniqueness, because they're going to bring a different perspective to the table.
They know you.
They know you, yeah.
Grab the person who knows you the most, and even more importantly, grab the person who you feel like you could be the most yourself.
Wow.
If there's one person in the world where you're like, I literally can be me, good, bad, ugly, goofy, quirky, all of the things, talk to that person.
Oh, man. Okay. That is such a practical, if you don't take anything else away from this and you're listening, I'm having such an amazing conversation with Miss Olivia, and I'm learning so much. And I'm just getting refocused right now. I need to do that. And if you're listening, do that. We need to do that on a regular basis as humans, as people. Like, hey, what are you seeing in me? What are you seeing is my future? How would you speak into what I'm doing? What's the uniqueness I bring to the table? We just need to keep leaning into that. Because as we tell our stories and as our stories unfold, if your story isn't the way that you want it to be, well, guess what? You can determine the future of your story.
These are the 3 questions to ask. Find the person that you are most authentic with. Ask them to describe who you are. Describe how you make them feel. So we talked about that earlier. How do I make you feel? And what would your world be like without me? So in those 3 questions, that'll give you a richer sense of who you are in this world that you can't quite grasp on your own.
And we all need a better sense of self. How has writing this book with your daughter helped you with that?
It has helped me in a lot of ways because when we think about who can you be most authentic with, she is one of two people that I feel like I can just truly be myself around. Goofy, silly, smart, angry, hurt, all the things. So hearing her perspective on how I have handled certain life events, how she perceives me as a woman of God, and what my faith looks like from her perspective has been extremely helpful in helping me realize that I have a bigger impact than I even thought that I had. I'm really self-critical. I think we all are.
Sure.
And so for her to say, not being prompted or paid or, she has nothing to gain from telling me what my life has meant to her and how I've impacted the woman that she has become.
We were at a football game recently, and I brought up something you wrote that impacted me and that I thought was very powerful, and it was worth me remembering. I think you do that very well, and not in where you're oversharing, but where you're sharing, and you bring other people into the journey, and you bring other people into the story, and you are positively pushing forward and trying to help others join you in pushing forward. And I just think you're so admirable. And I mean, I haven't gotten to read a ton of the stuff that you've done, but the fact that I'm remembering the things that you do, that you do bring to the table, that you do write, that you do create, it's okay. That means a lot.
It means so much. Thank you for saying that. And when that is brought to my attention, it reminds me to keep doing it.
Oh yeah, keep going.
I think a lot of times we don't know that anyone's listening. Yeah. Is anyone even watching this podcast right now? We don't know people are listening, but they really are. And I was at a different football game, and at CU.
Classic, you're at football games.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
Weird.
Weird.
So weird. I was at a different football game, and a former student came up to me who I had met several years prior, probably 3 or 4 years prior to that, and through some alumni stuff. And she said, I follow you on social media. I've been following you for a few years now. And you said something 4 years ago that I think of every morning when I wake up. And I'm like racking my brain, like, oh my God, like, what did I say? I have no clue. What I said. And she said, you were alluding to this notion of being in a waiting period and being in a like limbo, and that there's worship in waiting. And that to worship while you wait. She was like, I don't even believe in God. She's like, I kind of don't really know what that means exactly. But I will never forget that. And she's like, I'm just so grateful. She was, transitioning and going into law school and trying to figure out what to do with life. She's like, every morning I think about worship while you wait, being grateful and having gratitude while you're in limbo. And I was just like, wow, I guess I should continue to probably
Sometimes we don't
do
realize
things.
What our words do or how we act impacts. And whether anyone listens to this or not, the most valuable thing for me doing this podcast is for me to learn and for me to be encouraged and for me to be challenged. It's just throwing a mic on a conversation that I want to have. And for me, it's how can I grow personally? Where does God want me to step? How can I serve and help? But also, if we can have a conversation that's worth having, great. It will impact us enough. Yes. Just like a post or just like something that you've created, like this book, that we get to share with everyone for the first time what it looks like through her eyes, which is so fun that you wrote with you and your daughter. And if we can do that and we can reflect on the story that's within us, we will create something that's of value.
Of value, and that will impact people well and way beyond what we could possibly imagine.
Yes. If I am impacted, there may be, just maybe, someone else that can be. Because if I am, well, guess what I can do? I can serve, I can guide, I can help others. Whether it's through this or on the other side of this, because I've been changed. So anyways, I love thinking through that. And perspective, the full Vantage podcast is to get the different vantage points and understand them fully so we can either see our dreams become reality faster or our problems get solved quicker. Because those best happen in the context of community, which, thank you for being a part of my community.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Through Her Eyes. This is, I'll reveal it.
You can reveal it.
Okay, so this is what it looks like.
Yes.
And this is the first time you've ever shared that. So that is such an honor.
Brand new.
With Malia and Olivia, mother-daughter combo. It says Through Her Eyes, a mother and daughter parallel perspectives on love, loss, purpose, and faith. A memoir. And so your story together, your daughter's 22, so the past 22 years, bringing this together. What would you like to say about Through Her Eyes? Because when does it come out? And then how, if someone's going to pick this up and read it, which I would encourage everyone to do. I actually can't wait to read it myself. I'm a big reader. Do you care to elaborate on this book?
Yeah, the book is Through Her Eyes. It really is taking prompts and questions and having each of us answer them through our own lens and our own perspective. What's really interesting is not only the generational difference and the age difference, but because of that generational difference and age difference, she looks at things totally differently than I do. Mm-hmm. And we had this really aha moment the other day where, because she's written her sections of the book and I've written mine, and then we have purposely not fully read each other's sections yet.
You haven't read it yet?
Not fully.
Okay.
Because there's some surprises in there.
Sure.
Some things, she speaks on when her dad and I got divorced and what that meant to her and that impact on her, things that we have never talked about. Because you don't talk about those details with little kids, but she's older now and, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing we did talk about that we were kind of shocked of is in every chapter of the book, I have a lens of being a Black woman. And so even when I talk about education, there is this notion of what that means as a Black woman. When I talk about childhood and growing up, I was born in upstate New York. I was in a, all white classroom. And what does that mean? And so she was just like, she doesn't wear the lens and the goggles of a Black woman all the time. She can take them on and off. And in different topics of the book, she's like, I don't even wear that lens. And she felt bad about it because I did. And I felt good about it. I was like, I'm so glad in your life and in your world, you're free enough to not look everything through that lens of a Black woman, that you can actually take that off. That feels very freeing to me. And it's heavy and weighty for me to always have those lenses on. So we've learned a lot about each other in the writing of this book, but May 3rd is when it comes out. May 3rd was the date we picked because she graduates from Belhaven University in Jackson, Mississippi on May 3rd with her bachelor's in creative writing. And I graduate from Belhaven University on May 3rd with my MBA in entrepreneurship. So we will walk together. We literally have a bookstore lined up for a book signing later that day in Jackson, and then more events in Denver. But that's the date. So Queen's Quill Publishing is the publishing company. All the information is online wherever you search Queen's Quill Publishing or Through Her Eyes.
Oh, I love that. So I believe that if someone picks this book up, what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to have an opportunity to think through things. And maybe even, it may be smart, I'm just reflecting on some of the best practices for me to be able to even use when I read it, is to bring who I am to the table and assess and think through as you guys are revealing. Well, feel free to do the same.
Those prompts, yeah.
Feel free to do the same. And guess what? You know, if someone's close to you that's helped you become who you are, mother, father, brother, sister, friend, uncle, grandparents, doesn't matter. The good thing is to be able to have conversations alongside them about things that have happened in the past as well, which is, I think, is really powerful. Life, loss, gaining perspective on those things, and how do we move forward in the future together? How can I support you in your future? How can you support me in my future? And it's like, whoa, we can actually build relationships that talk about the things worth talking about. And doesn't that feel just so powerful for everyone?
It's so powerful. And I always think about legacy too. It's like, it's those conversations, those realizations, and the relationships that have a ripple effect forever. And that live on forever. So then when we're gone, you have impacted your children. Like, you have been able to pass these certain things down and really leave a legacy behind.
Oh, come on. Okay, so I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up, and it's this. What is something maybe unexpected that you think people should start thinking about, that you are either thinking about or that you see in the world around us? What's something that we should be thinking about or maybe even learning?
I would say creating content. And when I say that, our heads a lot of times will go straight to making TikTok videos or posting on Instagram. But content is in the form of art. It's in the form of words on a page. It could be blog posts. It could be a podcast. Anything that is taking things out of our head and heart and making them tangible, because then that is what we then leave behind. When my dad passed away, he had so many writings. Like, he wrote pages on theories and his thoughts, and there was so much that he left behind that then we could go back and look at and kind of learn about him. And I actually learned more about him not being here than when he was here. And so I think about that a lot, is like, what do we want to leave behind, and how can create content that then is tangible for other people to just learn more about us and learn more about the world.
Okay, follow-up question. If someone is afraid of the word content, how would you reimagine that for them? Meaning, there's too many podcasts in the world, there's too many books,
and
I'm
it's
not
so
that
daunting,
good enough.
And it's like,
and content's like, oh man, then I've got to
I got to get a microphone.
Yeah, and then maybe I don't. Social media is evil, like whatever. It's like they don't. So do you reimagine that for the person at the most basic level? Because I agree with you. Yeah, I just would love to hear your thoughts on the most basic level.
The most basic level is taking things out of your head and your heart and making them tangible. So again, it could be painting. It could be creating music. It could be writing. And those are very artistic things. It could literally be recording audio. There's a really cool thing that I keep seeing online, and it's this book that I think, talking about memoirs, a book where an app where you send your parents this app, and it has prompts, and it's a question. Tell us about your first job, and they record it into their phone, and then it transcribes it, puts it into a book, and then manufactures and produces this book for your family, and that has these stories and these legacies. I think about my grandmother passing, and literally with her passing, she took the stories of how her and my grandfather met, and my great-grandmother, and recipes that we don't have because they weren't written down. So anything that's taking it out of your head and heart, that's placing it on a tangible page, canvas, recording, whatever that might be, is what I mean by create content.
I absolutely love that. I would tag voice memo, which is
yes.
Voice memos
Absolutely
are actually so amazing.
Yes.
The other day I did this. I recorded my youngest son, Zeke, I recorded him talking about something because I will never get that voice back. I will never get that mispronunciation of the word back. And I thought, what a good thing to have so that I could show him, but also I can celebrate and I can value. Because if I can look back, then how much more can I look forward? Because we will build a life
Love
from
that you
that.
did that.
Thank you.
I wish I had done. I wish I had done that. I wrote. I kept like this little blog or whatever. It was on Facebook way back in the day, and I just would write like, my daughter Malia said this, and then my son Gabe said this back, and it was the most entertaining, funny, incredible. I mean, he's like 4, she's 7, like the greatest thing ever. But the voice. My son used to say he didn't say granola bar, he said gorilla bar. Ooh. So good. But just like, no, gorilla bar. Like seriously, it's a gorilla bar, Mom. And I don't have that anymore.
Oh, yes.
I'm
You have the
glad you
memory,
did the
but you don't
voice.
have the moment. And if someone's not as maybe creative or they feel weird about their writing, just record voice.
Just record voice. And I've helped quite a few people publish books. And one time a couple times I had someone write out a whole bunch of questions, put them on sticky notes, put them up on a wall, and then answer them on their phone and have it transcribed. And it literally, afterwards, it takes a little bit of editing and some shuffling and some zhuzhing and all of that stuff. But they had a book at the end of the day. So yeah, audio, just brain dumping.
I love that you put brain and heart together. Most people don't do brain and heart. Most people are all heart or all brain. But I think thinking through and then not having the passion and the emotion come through at the same time.
Which is so imperfect.
Ah,
The heart is so, not to quote scripture, I'm not going to go into that, but like the heart is so deceitful. It's so fleeting. There's so much around the heart, but it's also very powerful. And so, yeah, I think combining the two is always very, very important. Having the head and the heart work together as in a way that's as harmonious as possible. Sometimes that's really tricky. But if you're not capturing how something made you feel, then you're missing that really great emotional or emotive element.
I believe you, 100%. It is such an honor to have you on and to have you as a friend and to get to know you better and to hear where you're headed. And I'm so excited about this book. I can't wait to read it. And you're such an encouraging person. Thank you for all you're doing. It's juggling and leaning into the difficult things and then just sharing with the world and not being afraid, of what people may think, but having the right support system around you. So anyways.
Thank you. Thanks for creating this platform.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Full Vantage Podcast. And if you want to connect with Olivia, how do people connect with you?
OliviaOmega.com or Olivia Omega on all the things.
Okay, there it is, OliviaOmega.com. And we'll put that in the show notes so people can have a direct link. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you're challenged. Hope you're ready to get what's in your mind and your heart out, whether that's voice recorded or on paper or in some form of capturing it. Hope you're challenged. Have a great day. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.